Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Handyman Internet TV show. My name is Jason Antelek, and I am your host. And you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube, also at thespiritualhandyman.com. And we are all about bringing you the methods that bring the tools and reminding you that you are the one who makes the magic. You've already got it. So we're going to help you out with some basic tools to help you get to where you're headed, whether that's the next level or that's just tomorrow. Today we have got an incredible guest for us. This is Fox Beyer that's joining us today, and he is a speaker and an author. He's created a book of poetry that's pretty amazing. He'll be sharing pieces of that with you. He is also a motivational speaker and very much in the realm of inspiring people and igniting that fire within. That is a lot of what he does. He's a passionate man, and grateful to have him on the show today. So Fox, if you will, please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers. Tell them a little bit about what you do.
Yes, Jason. First of all, thank you for having me on today. And I just want to take the time today as a guy who is a school teacher. As Jason said, I am an author, a speaker. But I guess what I really want to share today throughout is there's a lot of talk these days about, people being bored. And I wanted to share some strategies or some stories of how we can never be bored. And it's those stories of people that have challenged themselves beyond belief. And I think those stories have inspired me. Maybe it will inspire you to not stay idle, to achieve things that you might have otherwise thought you couldn't achieve.
That's great. That's great. What an amazing thing to bring to people and inspire them to not stay idle, like you said, not keep your butts parked on the couch and do something besides flick the remote for physical activity, right? Get yourself out there and doing things. And I appreciate that that's the approach that you're taking today. Real quick, as far as your journey and how you got to a place where you're doing what you're doing, admirable, of course, as a school teacher. That's just, I don't have enough words for you helping the youth of our country and others, quite honestly, by teaching. So thank you for being that guy. But also on your journey of inspiration, how did you end up on stages? How did you end up talking to people about not being bored?
Well, it's funny you say that. I think I got there, and I really enjoy what I do in all aspects, but I got there because of teachers who made me believe I was somebody. So a couple of examples. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm in a study skills class, and I'm just dog tired, Jason. I mean, and I don't want to be there. I've got my head down on my desk, and then I look out the door to the room. It's a window, and it's my 10th grade language arts teacher, Mr. Ranger, and he's tapping on the window and giving me a thumbs up just to see that I was okay. In the 7th grade, I had a Spanish teacher named Mr. Garceran. We would actually, in those days, back in the Ice Age, back when I was in 7th grade, some 25 years ago, he would give us an assignment, and we'd write, it'd be like a one-question assignment, and you'd write your answer, and you'd walk up to him with an index card. And one time I did this, and he looked at me and said, "You're going to go places." And that kind of gave me the confidence for today, to go around on stages, anybody that'll have me, to share parts of my story and parts of others to help people live a better life.
That's amazing that you are still reaching so far back for that motivation and recognizing that there's it just takes a moment for the right person to make a lasting impact on someone, to motivate them and to help them recognize that they can be more than they are in that moment, and more than than maybe that they realize or even comfortable with. Growth is not always a thing that's super easy, right? Growth comes with some discomfort, and not just the pains of going through puberty or getting taller, but also as we get a little older, for those of us who are on a new journey, or maybe have been in corporate America and are starting to ask questions, or starting on a spiritual path, finding out what it is for ourselves that is next, and that journey is not an easy one, and finding places for that motivation is really powerful. So I'd love to hear some more stories about how that worked for you, and even more importantly, what has inspired you that isn't just from your experience.
From my experience, to begin specifically, I've always thought this way, and I wrote about it in my book. The road to success is not paved. It's not going to be easy. Like you said, you're going to go through some ups and downs, but it becomes more fulfilling. The harder it is to do, the more fulfilling it is in the end when you achieve it. I might have heard this or seen this, but it's I forget the man's name, but it's his speech. It's a commencement speech, and it's titled "The Wisdom of a Third Grade Dropout." And he says in his speech, "I'd rather you all," speaking to his students or the students, "I'd rather you all shoot high and miss than shoot low and hit." So in that spirit, I'm a storyteller, and the story I'll share today of some people. One is the story of Isaiah Bird. You might have seen this on ESPN. He's a teenage kid now living in Long Beach, New York, and he's faced a series of challenges in his life. One will never go away. It's the fact that he has no legs. But that hasn't stopped him from being a very successful wrestler in his life. And even to quote him, wrestling gives him an advantage because for him, it's easier to bring people down. There's the story of Diane Van Daren, who was a world-class athlete and still is. Her toughest challenge to me was at age 28. She began suffering from a series of epileptic seizures that ended up hindering her organizational skills and ability to track time. But she didn't give up. She ran, this is no lie, a 1,000 mile, ran, hiked, walked, a 1,000 mile mountains to sea race, arriving along the Atlantic Ocean. And Jason, get this, 22 days, 3 hours, and 50 minutes. That's an average of 45 miles per day. So speaking of people that have that fire within, Isaiah Bird and Diane Van Daren, to me, really fit that story and kind of teach us, hey, we've got a lot more going for ourselves than maybe we think we do.
Those are both amazing stories. And I am familiar with the wrestler that you shared, but I was not familiar with Diane. That's 45 miles a day, and to cover 1,000 miles. That's difficult to even imagine. There's a limit to what we feel like we can do, and it sounds like both of those people have pushed so far beyond it. It's almost it sounds unreachable in some cases to me to go 1,000 miles like that. Whew. But help me understand what you recognize, Fox, that is are the little pieces, the details for them that continue to drive them. What keeps them moving every day? Like what do you feel like they tell themselves, or what do you have to share around how we can motivate ourselves simply each day to just get out of bed, much less walk 1,000 miles?
Right. I think it's this thought process for me. Positive thoughts might not always work, but negative thoughts will kill you. So it would behoove us to choose the former. Part of my story is this: I am 6 years old, and I just had what's called a hip osteotomy. I'm a guy with cerebral palsy, so I've had a few procedures done on my legs, and 2 or 3 days after the surgery, I got discharged early from the hospital. And my dad and I was staying with me, had no way to get home. My mother is home with my siblings, and out of nowhere, my dad's boss at the time showed up. A guy that was born. The surgery is done in New York, and he's from Brooklyn, so he knew New York City. I can recall at age 6, lying casted in the back of his station wagon, him talking to my dad about cancer and how he was convinced that he was going to contract it. 3 or 4 years later, it's the summertime. I'm home from school, and my dad walks into the kitchen in the middle of the day during the middle of the week. And he was a banker at the time and worked all the time. And I asked him, "Dad, why are you home?" And he explained to me that he had just come home from Jerry's funeral. He did indeed contract cancer, and he unfortunately succumbed to the disease. So that's evidence enough for me to choose the positive and be relentlessly positive. So reflecting back on Diane and Isaiah, 2 examples of people that it's all about a checkup from the neck up.
So when you're faced with something that is adverse, how do you shift that mindset? How do you get yourself out of the negative into the positive? I mean, because we all succumb to it occasionally. It's going to happen. So what does that shift feel like to you? What does it sound like in your head when you make that change?
The sound in my head is, Fox, there's no complaining. And that's the sound of my parents telling me that as I grew up as a young man. We didn't have a whole lot of rules, but one was, you're taken care of, 0 complaining. Complaining, like I say, it's like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. So the complete lack of self-pity, I think, is something that I carry with myself on a daily basis.
That's a powerful tool. I like the way you said that. The complete lack of self-pity, right? I'm alive, I'm walking, I'm talking, I'm breathing, I'm doing all of these things, and that's enough to make me want to do something positive today. Is that accurate for you?
Yes, we have a tendency, and I kind of fall into this sometimes. Jason, it's almost like anybody that I'm talking to, or a lot of people, when you're speaking to them, it's the mindset that, boy, I've got it worse than them. They've got it better than me. I always try to, and it's a conscious choice. And like you said, this is not easy. It's easy to fall into the negative. It's easy to complain. But I've always had the mindset, and this is partly by being raised by 2 really good parents, is that you need to take the mindset that the person you're talking to always has it tougher than you do. And once you do that, that kind of, most of the time, puts me in a better mood.
I could see how that would take the edge off of it for sure. If you're seeing that someone else has got a tougher time, it puts things in your own life into a perspective of, it's not really that bad.
Right. Anytime I end up, speaking and whatever topic it is, it always ends up being like that, or the comments that I get are along those lines. Boy, I guess this really isn't that bad. We'll find a way through it.
Right. So that mindset of recognizing that you're not the only person that tough stuff happens to, and that there's always somebody who's got it tougher, right? That's one way to look at it. Help our viewers and listeners maybe with the next step is once you've done that, like what do you do next? What do you do with that? Like once you've told yourself, okay, I recognize that it could be worse for me. So how do I move forward away from where I just was?
Push yourself like you never have before. Somebody gave me advice years ago in therapy, and their advice was to me, and I had just gotten a hamstring transfer surgery, so I'm lying in bed, and I'm having these unbelievable muscle spasms, and I said, hey doc, how am I going to get on my feet as quickly as I possibly can? He said, Fox, two things. When you're in therapy, take yourself to the point of tears every time you do it. And number two, when you take your 500th correct step of the day, then you can go to bed. And I loved how he phrased the second half of the advice. He affirmed a positive outcome before the beginning of the venture. He didn't say if you get to your 500th step. He said when you get to your 500th correct step of the day. And all the while knowing I was going to screw up, and I was going to trip and fall and have incorrect steps. But I just love how he phrased that. So take yourself to the point of tears, but when you set goals for yourself, affirm positive outcomes before you even set out to achieve the goal.
I love the way that he presented that to you. I agree that that's a great mindset. That what really stands out there for me is that it goes beyond just setting a goal. It really is that this thing already happened.
Right.
It already happened. You already did it. And I feel like that is one way to really draw in what you get from putting the effort in. When you take an opportunity to look at when I've completed this project, or when I've reached this goal, how am I going to feel at the other side of that? And bringing that feeling into the moment. And for me, that really assists in the motivation. It really helps me recognize and keep with me why I'm doing it. And staying on track and really pushing myself, like you said, to that point of tears, to the point of beyond just regular discomfort. If you really want to grow and you want to do it fast, if you're on the fast track, it's not an easy place to be. You really have to put the time in for that. Would you agree?
Yes, it's you got to get your lunch pail and go to work, Jason. There's no other way. There's no other way around it. I mean, you know this. It takes time. It takes elbow grease, but I've always been, if there's something that I'm addicted to in life, it's ways to find fulfillment. And I find the most fulfillment when there's the most pain during the journey.
Oh, wow. I can't say that everybody would agree with that,
Yeah.
but it's what works for you, and it's very authentic on your part. And like kind of hands up, like that's what works for me. That's great. That's great. We did start a conversation about what are some things to do to keep from being bored, to get your butt off the couch, to take those steps and take the 500 correct steps. So maybe share some views you have on that part.
I would say a couple of things going back to what I said. One is, push yourself like never before. Two, before you set out, like we talked about, make sure that you frame it positively. I mean, if you're already on your butt, your ASS, you're not going to want to get off of it if you put yourself down and say, I can't do this. Affirm a positive outcome before you do it. And realize, too, that goals can be adjusted throughout the process. You need to remember that. That's one thing that I learned. Remembering back that surgery, Jason, was in 1990, so I was 12 years old. And do I recall if I hit my 500 every single day? No, but I know that, heck, like before, I shot for the stars. So it's make an effort to reach the goal, to be perfect. If you're not, make an adjustment. And along the way, don't act like somebody that you're not. Stick to your principles, and you'll surround yourself with good people that support you in your journey rather than put you down and tell you you can't do it. And just to carry on a little bit more, again, surround yourself with good people that support you. And one way to do that is to support other people in their journeys as well, as they achieve their goals.
Oh, I think you got a really good tactic there. I think it just kind of snuck in a little bit. Is supporting other people, and seeing what others are accomplishing, what they're doing around you, and how they're succeeding, and looking at what they are doing to get themselves there. I'm a believer that you can learn from the guru as long as what you do is the same as his, but it doesn't always work that way. The guy who meditates for 4 hours a day is not necessarily the same person that you meet on a street corner somewhere. Those guys are very, very different, but what works for one isn't necessarily going to work for the other. So you can listen to what a guru does and what they say and follow their 7-step plan and do all those things, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But what it does do is help you recognize what might work, and you can take steps 1 and 5 and 6, and those things apply for you. And you find that out by paying attention to what other people do and what they are about, and how they're succeeding and what their mindset is. Like you said, how are they approaching things? That's powerful stuff. It really is.
Yes, you're like you said, your approach is a conglomerate of the people that you surround yourself with. I mean, the reason that I watch and hear and learn about stories of Isaiah Bird, Diane Van Der, and Terry Fox is because maybe I did hit a lower point. Maybe I was struggling. I needed something to give me that initial push. And when you hear about a story that happened almost 40 years ago now of a kid running 3,339 miles across Canada on one leg, and a cancerous leg at that, what you might think you can't do becomes a lot easier to achieve. Yeah, surround yourself with good people, the people that you'd want to be like.
Right. This sometimes we draw to us and we spend time with those people that are going to sit on the couch with us. And if we're drawing that kind of thing into our life, we're not going to change that. That's not going anywhere. So getting out there and exposing yourself to what other people are achieving. So you touched on the name Terry Fox. Is that the same person that walked the 3,000 plus miles?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
You know his story, right? This is 1980 in Canada. So he's a competitive, athletic 18-year-old kid, and he contracts cancer, and he has to have his leg, one of his legs, amputated up above his knee. But he didn't self-pity again. He didn't wallow in self-pity. He realized that in treatment at the time, there were kids younger than him that had worse fates than he did. So he wasn't running to prove something to himself. He was running to raise money for those kids with cancer. He did. And to this day, the organization in his name, the Terry Fox Foundation, has raised millions in cancer research. So that's a story that I always reflect on. It's another ESPN story, I believe, called Into the Wind. So I would recommend that to anybody. And there's tons of literature on him, tons of books. I mean, you throw him in Google, he's drenched in sweat, shorts and a tight t-shirt, 1981 style, 1979 style, and just getting after it. And I love it.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for expanding on that story. Wasn't something I was familiar with, and I love the way you said that he was running for the kids that had it tougher than him. It's almost like he was running because he could, and making it not about himself, making it about being in service to others. And I think sometimes that's a key component that can be really motivating. Not just like you said, recognizing that somebody has it more difficult, but taking what you do have and trying to make things a little better for the person who's next down the line. I think that's powerful motivation, and gets us outside of ourselves and not so centered on our goals, but just doing things for the fact of doing them for someone else. It's beautiful.
It's incredibly fulfilling. I mean, and that's what's given me the most fulfillment in my life to this point is really helping out other people that need your help and that will be better off with your help. I get great fulfillment out of that. I'm a fulfillment seeker and junkie, maybe.
I believe after our conversation today, I would call you a fulfillment specialist.
Specialist.
Fulfillment specialist.
I'll find that on my website now, Jason.
Yeah, add that to your list, buddy. The first one's free.
Got it. Freebie here on the Spiritual Handyman Show.
Love it.
I like this.
Fox, thank you so much for your inspirational words and sharing the story. Your stories were really great, and the stories of others. And it's one thing to get information that is out there, but to get it straight from the source and to understand where you're coming from and to get some insight in what keeps you moving and keeps that fire going for you and keeps you from being bored. That's priceless stuff. And thank you for being so open and being willing to share those parts of your life and putting it out there and allowing other people to see that they can do it.
Thank you so much, Jason, for your time and space today. This has been a great conversation. It's a great platform. I hope it continues for a long time.
Woo, me too. I'm right there with you. It's all about being in service here and bringing those tools for the toolbox. And everybody's got something different that works for them. So we just keep tossing them out there, and people pick them up and use them if that's what works. So real quick before we take off, though, I would love to hear about where we can get your book and where we can get more information about you or reach out and contact you if that's something that we're driven to do. How about you share some of that info?
Sure thing, Jason. I am, again, my name's Fox Beyer, Foxbeyer, and I have a website which bears my name, foxbeyer.com, Foxbeyer.com. My book, I'll put it up here, it's Letter Kindling, Igniting, Inspiring, and Evoking the Fire Within. As Jason said, I want to offer to you free today, FREE, for taking the time to listen to us. So just log on to my website, fire me a message, and I would be happy to ship a copy out to you. Additionally, I am on all the forms of social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google+, bearing the same name, Fox Beyer, Foxbeyer. Thank you for your time today.
Well, thanks for sharing those pieces. That is an amazing offer. I'm logging on right away. I'm telling you, I'd love to.
You're getting it for free, whether you like it or not.
Oh, good. I'm down. And remember, guys, that if you have any interest in reaching out to Fox for your speaking engagements and some sort of inspirational situation, and you really want to hit home that you got to get your butt off the couch to get things done. You got to take action if you want new outcomes. Fox is your guy for that, and he's obviously easily accessible, but that information will be down below in the comments. So join, like, share, subscribe, do all the cool stuff, click all the cool buttons. Remember that the Spiritual Handyman is here for you. It is about the method that brings the tools. The magic is already within you, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.